All right, we heard about a lot about good scenario recovery and bad scenario non-recovery. So let's localize that. We'll start with you, John. What's your good scenario look like?
Yeah, I think I'm really very optimistic about what's going on here. I think we're all gonna miss it. I think we're gonna have. I'm not predicting a boom, but I see very good steady growth coming in a classic recovery phase. That anytime we stop building in Houston and we get job growth, good things happen. And so I see really 2011, 2012 being the years when we do get job growth returning. If we get 2% job, 1 to 2% job growth, that's 30 to 50,000 jobs returning to this marketplace, and we're there already. I think the year to date we're 30+ thousand. So I'm very optimistic that we're coming back. I'm not predicting a boom. I mean, everybody's got to get out of their mind the 2005 to 2007 era was the steroid era. I'm not talking about baseball. I'm talking about financial steroids that were shoved into the system that magnified everything. And those have been, you know, we've gone through cold turkey. You know, the monkey's been on our back here for a while as we've ridded ourselves of this stuff. We're back to normal Houston metrics, which if you look at the recovery period from say 93 through 98, the period of 2002 to 2005 or 6, good solid 2-3% job growth, good markets, and I think we'll backfill a lot of space. We're going to see some build-to-suits start coming out of it, and the apartment market will cure itself. It's already starting to happen, and so I'm very optimistic about the next 2 to 3 years here.
Any bad scenarios, things we got to stay away from?
You know, bad scenarios would be if we get some kind of financial shock that really, you know, and there are people out there writing about it, you know, saying that, you know, we could have a bond, you know, the next bubble or in corporate bonds, that something external happens. China dumps our treasuries or something like that, and suddenly the markets freeze again. I mean, that could cut off the capital that has been, really hadn't started flowing until about the end of the first quarter of this year, and it's coming back, and it isn't showing itself in the numbers yet, but it will probably by the end of the fourth quarter and into the first quarter. So the bad news would be that something happens to really spook the financial markets again. So that's, you know, who knows about that.
What about that 2,400-page financial bill that's sitting out there? You think there's any?
That's great for the legal profession. Yeah. They'll fill the buildings. Yeah. So.
Any lawyers in the audience? He wasn't talking about you. Okay. Welcome. Give me your good scenario, bad scenario recipe.
Well, I think the good scenario is that we're in the state of Texas, and we're in Houston, Texas. Right. And really, if any of you have been in other cities out there, it's a lot different picture in other cities in the United States. So thank goodness we're in the great state of Texas and the great city of Houston, because one thing Houston did is we didn't have the overbuilding and overhang that other cities have. And I think we probably learned our lesson in the 80s, and we never got out in front of our skis too much here in Houston. So the good news is, where there's a huge inventory of surplus space in other markets, Houston has very little. So the good news scenario is things keep rocking just like they are at a modest growth, and we will absorb what we have, and with more people coming to town and more jobs being created, we're going to need more space. Yeah. So that's really the good news scenario. The bad news scenario, like John mentioned, is if some unforeseen worldwide financial event occurs that we have no control over. Okay. Double dip, whatever the naysayers are saying, that would slow down the growth. Houston makes its living on oil and gas production, so as long as we have healthy oil and gas pricing, then Houston is going to do very well.
Okay. Chip, how about you?
I agree. I think John and Welcome are right on the money. I think that I'd agree, not a boom scenario at all, but The fact that we did not get over our skis on overbuilding, and the fact that people are committing to longer-term transactions, as evidenced by I guess British Gas just signed a big deal, BHP just signed a big deal. You see investor interest in Houston. Brookfield, paid a big number for downtown for a trophy asset. I think again, good news for particularly with all the students here, folks that are coming into the job market. It's great to be in Texas, and I think if you're going to be in a Texas city, Houston's the best city to be in. And there's a lot of great companies in our industry, which is one of the things I love about the commercial real estate business, and they're going to need local market expertise because people want to be in Houston. I think hard assets. If inflation ever comes back, which it will at some point, owning hard assets is not a bad place to be. The bad news scenario is that if people, it's funny. I read an article on the way over here today that people, what is it? The real estate cycles are typically 10 years, and most real estate professionals' memories are 5 years. So, so sometimes that doesn't
Their
completely.
careers are 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't sync up. So sometimes you can abandon fundamentals, but for a state that's going to have net positive in-migration for the foreseeable future and add jobs, I think it's good news.
Private sector job growth is strong here in Houston, as opposed to the government sector.
Yes.
Yeah, a government job is not a job.
Right.
It's the private sector.
How about that?
I mean, as far as the growth of our economy,
Right.
that's not going to grow the economy.
Yeah.
I saw the reporter go right down to her and make a little note right on that. Welcome Wilson says a government job.
Remember
is not
the
a
origin
job.
of the word politics. Okay. Okay, John, you have a great question here. What are the insurance and pension fund companies doing today regarding the lending on commercial properties?
The insurance companies have come back pretty strong. Most of them got through all this in pretty good shape. Some of them own some CMBS they took some write-downs on. Most of them don't have big positions in the stock market, and their portfolios were predominantly corporate bonds and commercial mortgages. And commercial mortgages by the insurance companies are running less than 1% default ratio. So they're in good shape. They've been conservative lenders. They kind of got left in the dust by the CMBS lenders in the last upcycle, but they have remained in the market, and they are now back strong. Most of them will tell you that they may have an allocation of X dollars to put out, but if they could triple it and have good quality product, there's no limitations to do it. So we're seeing companies that have loan appetites of 1 to 3 million or 30 to 200 million. All of them across the board are actively in the market, and they like commercial real estate mortgages because they get a better yield than they get on corporate bonds. They like the collateral. That they create the loans themselves. It's a real hands-on process for them where they really get in and underwrite the properties and get to know the borrowers. And so they've been doing this for a long time, and so they're very comfortable with what they're doing, and they have been given the green light to get out and make the deal. So it's been, and again, this isn't crazy lending by any means.
No ninja loans in commercial
no,
real estate?
No.
Okay.
So, and the pension funds have an appetite for commercial mortgages again. They typically, you find it's not the same group that does real estate investments. This is on the fixed income side of the pension funds. They like commercial mortgages because the spreads above treasuries are really good right now. And so at some point, in the past cycle, when the spreads really got narrow down to 100 basis points or whatever, they just abandoned the field. They're coming back. We see a lot of the big state pension funds that have always had mortgage departments are active and looking again, and they like the yield, so they're in the market.